Wow, I just got into some storage and I found my old original Atari game system. Now, wouldn't it be great if Lego made a model of the Atari 2600? Oh, wait a minute. They do make a model. Let's compare this to this coming up next. Hello everybody, this is Drmcbrick and I am here with another comparison video. Now, before you get your shorts in a knot, please know that of course this isn't a real direct one-to-one comparison because this is real. That's not. That's fake. This is real. This was mine when I was a kid. This was not. I just bought this. So with that said, please like this video. Please subscribe if you're so inclined and hit that bell to get notifications of more videos. I enjoy doing the comparison videos. This one I thought might be kind of fun because I have my old Atari 2600, or as it was known as the video computer system, and it still works. And as a matter of fact, I have all of my games for it that I've shown you here. I just thought it'd be kind of cool to take this and then compare it with the Lego version of the Atari video computer system 2600 and the video game cartridges and all that kind of stuff and the controller sticks and everything. I just thought it'd be kind of cool. Tell you a little bit about the original. From what I know, this was purchased in 1980 by my mother and father. They had saved up for it and they got a special deal from Sears. And back in the day, 1980, I was 1980, I would have been anyway, because of that, this cost a boatload of money, from what I understand. And I know my folks, it was a big deal, but they brought this into our house to kind of entertain the family. And this just wasn't for me. This was for me, my mom, my dad, and my sister, and any friends who came over and stuff like that. And it was really, really cool. It was down in the living room, set it up and everything like that. But at the time, you could go to Sears and you could actually buy the Atari system. And so what happened was, there were several different stratifications of the Atari system. There were Atari games that were by Atari, and they had this look on them when they were renamed the 2600. They had the silver labels and things like that, and we'll see that on the Lego model. And then Sears came out with what they called their series, and they were kind of nondescript, basic. They did because they couldn't use the same labels. So basically they used kind of generic labels. Now this is a classic game, and this is the game that really propelled Atari into this stratosphere in terms of gaming. Space Invaders. We played this constantly. This was a major competitive thing in our house. My dad would try to get the highest score. I'd try to get the highest score. My sister, my mom, everything like that. But you see all of the games, these two rows right here were all games that were sold by Sears and in the Sears store. Basketball was great. I mean, all of these were wonderful. Just absolutely loved them. There was baseball, we had football, Othello even, and Human Cannonball. That was the funniest game because it literally was a human being thrown out of a cannon and you had to aim it and all that kind of stuff. Golf, of course, we were into golf. Of course, I played basketball in school and I loved the basketball games. And then my favorite game of all time is Asteroids, and we'll see this on the Lego version, so I'll just set that aside as well. And then there were the Activision games. And Activision was a company that started because of Atari, I believe, or at least started producing Atari games. Pitfall down here was my favorite. Activision used a lot more intensive programming for their games, and so their games had a lot better graphics. And of course, we had skiing. My parents were really into bridge, and ice hockey was a cool game and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, we had the knockoffs, and this was a game, our game company called iMagic. And again, you can see there where it says for use with the Atari video game system, Joy Stick controllers, 1 or 2 players. This was a pool game called Trick Shot. There was Riddle of the Sphinx, which was like an adventure game, which was really, really cool. And then Firefighter, where you actually, buildings were burning and you had to go and put out fires and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's kind of the way the system came. And you can see how it looks. And it was made I think it came out in 1977 originally, and it was designed to go into a 70s living room. And this was, the fake wood grain and all that kind of stuff. Remember, wood, shag, Whitco, all kinds of, dark type stuff was big in the 70s. And so this really fit in with the American motif in terms of style and all that kind of stuff in the living room. Now, it had the controller, and this joystick controller is a famous controller, and it has been around for many, many years. And it really, in some ways, and it even says this in the Lego manual too, as I was building it, but I know for a fact, because I've been living that long, that this has become an icon of what a controller looks like, a gaming controller. This, plus the Xbox controller as well, PlayStation controller, but the 8-bit, this you usually see in a lot of pictures. Now this is the Lego model of the same thing. Now let's take a look. Let's put them side by side first. We'll talk about the controllers in a moment, but let's put these two consoles side by side so we can see. This is the Lego version. This is the real version. Now, the great thing about these two versions is they look great. Both of them look absolutely wonderful. Now, of course, you might say this looks dated. Well, yeah, because it was made in the 70s and sold, throughout the late 70s and early 80s. This Lego representation did a great job to mirror and really kind of almost, in a Lego way, the wood grain of this particular 2600 model here. Now, one thing that was always a pain in the, well, I won't say it, but it was a pain. And you can see it's hard. I even have some stuff there. Of course, this is aged pretty well, actually, to be honest with you. But this fluted, top, which really, is a nice design. However, it's a pain in the butt to clean and to keep clean. This has the piano finish, where this has a real kind of a rough finish. And so it's got that kind of, I don't know if you can even see it if I can get down there. Yeah, you can see it right there, how it's got the rough finish on it. So that way you can get in there and put some water on it. There's no vents in here right there, so it's all sealed. So you can go ahead and take a nice washcloth and just get those crevices out and things like that. This, on the other hand, is probably going to collect a lot of dust on your shelf. And I love it. They've definitely mirrored and did everything they could to do this fluting here and these things, but it has the piano finish on it. So it is going to get very, very, like most Lego. I mean, hey, it's all plastic. It's going to get dusty, right? I love the way Lego sculpted this model, just as the original was sculpted. And I have to say, as I was building this Lego model, I started to say, I kind of felt like I was building a real Atari gaming console. And, I started thinking about all of the good times that we had sitting around the Atari, sitting around the television and playing with the various games and having competitions with our neighbor friends and our friends and our families and things like that. It was not uncommon for kids and adults to swap cartridges and to say, okay, you take Pac-Man and give me Defender, and I'll play Defender for a week and you play Pac-Man for a week, and then we'll switch. Now, of course, these things cost a lot of money, just like games do now. I mean, $50-$60, those sort of things, they cost a lot of money. So I didn't want to give them away, but we would trade them, kind of like cassette tapes back in the 70s. You trade a little bit, let somebody borrow it, that sort of thing. Somebody might say, hey, I've never played Haunted House. And Haunted House was a really cool game, by the way. So then I would give it to my friend. My friend would give me one of his Atari games, and then we'd keep those for a couple weeks, and then we'd give them back. Sometimes, you'd give them to each other in school and all that kind of stuff like that. The game cartridges, and let's look at them here. Atari model comes with these 3 game cartridges, and they did sell a lot of holders for these. And of course, the more you got, they had big holders. They had ones that held 2, 4, 6, 8. I think they went up to like 24, and then you could stack them. And so they were like stack-ons for video games, video game cartridges. So here's a video game cartridge from Lego, and it looks, again, it's got the piano finish, just like obviously with Lego, but they did a great job of using that Galaxy Explorer in the Asteroids program. Now, let's compare this to the Asteroids actual cartridge. So there we go. You can take a look at them and you can see that they are very, very similar. Obviously, the stickers are almost exactly alike, except for they've Legoized these stickers, which they've done a great job of. But you see, they still have the same model number here. This here, 2649. 2649. Down here, it says program contents. They don't have that copyright statement down here, but if we look at the size of the cartridges, the size, of course, the Lego model is smaller, a little blockier. You would expect that, right? But in terms of the size, you know, it's just about right, and everything. Now, these had connectors like this. So inside, if you look at the connectors, and it plugged into the system. So this would, these two ends, these 2 holes, slots on each end would plug into here, and then your connectors would connect once it was down into the system. So you'd put it in like this, and then you could hear it snap. You just feel like right there, and then snap it one more, and there it goes. Now, when we do this, they've done a nice job. They put a green connector in there. Most Atari games, you aren't going to see this green connector. As a matter of fact, on all of them, I believe. But you did see them on some other console cartridge type based games. But the Atari actually came with, again, it came with the connectors like this. And let's look at a regular Atari. This is branded by Atari. It came with the connectors like this. So it didn't have the green connector, but that's a nice touch, I think. And that's kind of cool for Lego. And you push this one in, but it doesn't push in very much. So in other words, where this one kind of pushes the real one, and this one doesn't push in. So yeah, of course, because it's a model, right? But they've done a great job of looking at those connectors and coming up with the way everything fits in and all that kind of stuff like that. So now, you know, one of the things that I always thought was really cool were the buttons. Now, Atari in '77, when it came out with a different button system. This one is the 4-button system, and of course you had your power on and off, and then you could choose color or black and white TV, and then here's how you selected the game. So for instance, I was showing you how, for instance, on Space Invaders, with 1 or 2. No, actually that's not a good one. Let me see if I can find. Oh, here we go. Yeah. Here's a good one from Sears. 9 games in 1. Okay, breakout, progressive, cavity, and double. This one actually is for the paddle controllers, which came also with this set from Sears. The Lego version does not have a paddle controller with it. Usually use the paddle controllers to play games that were racing games or Pong or breakout or something like that. Tennis, things like that. That's what you use the paddle controllers for. So yeah, let's see. What else can I say about this? But yeah, so anyway, so the game select is what you would use to select these types of games. Okay, and you can see how that is springy. All right, and over here on the Lego version, it's springy as well. Very nice. They've done it really well, just like in the real game. However, on these, because it is Lego, you can switch these up and down, but these kind of travel at a angle. So when you take this down, it doesn't go straight down. It kind of goes, you can feel it going this way. And that's because of the types of mechanisms they used inside to do it, the Technic mechanisms and stuff like that, which is no big deal. Of course, you're going to have that for Lego. Where here, obviously, it's a straight up and a straight down, right? And so here, it's much more curved. But you know what? It's Lego. Again, please don't get your shorts in a knot. This is not a direct comparison. Just trying to have some fun playing with some of these things here. Now, let's look at the controllers. This is the original Atari Controller. Now you can tell we played a lot with it because the top of it is worn down. So, you know, you would play this thing and, you know, you would hold it in your hand, you'd hit the button. I can't do it because I don't have a tripod, but at the moment, but you know, you spam the button and things like that. That's all you had. You had 160 degrees I mean, 360, gosh, 360 degrees of movement and things like that. And then this was to kind of keep you, remember, graphics weren't that great back in the day. And so this was kind of, you know, if you wanted it in a certain position, you would know that these hash marks would move your squares or your pixels or your sprites or whatever you were playing in that direction. Now, they've done a great job of producing this Atari joystick. Now, it's much smaller than the original one, if you notice, but it looks very, very similar, even to the point of how you see how this is. It kind of is got an edge at the end, or at the half, about 3/4 of the way down. They did a great job with making this have an edge as well, about 3/4, well, about half on this one, and things. They did the prints with the hash marks. The button does not move. The button, you know, it would be great if it moved. One of the things that they did, I seem to remember this controller, and it does have a 3-dimensional button. One of the things that the controller for this model called for was just putting the button right on a stud. Well, I like the 3-dimensional look, so I took this, and this is the only modification I did on the whole set, was I made that button kind of pop up a little bit so it looks a little bit better. Now, this is a really cool mechanism on how they did this. So if we look, this controller, the original Atari, the original video computer gaming systems had stiffer controllers. This is not very stiff, but it's very satisfying in terms of the way it springs back, just like this original controller sprang back to neutral, the main position. This one does as well, and it also has that 360. And the way that they made it inside here is really a fun build. So I would say that, you know, it's not as stiff as the regular controller. Now, you could buy secondhand controllers or aftermarket controllers for the Atari 2600, and they were a lot more, you had a lot more play in the joystick, but the original ones that came with it were very stiff, actually. Now, Lego has done a good job of the back buttons as well, and they've tried to replicate the buttons as much as possible in the ports. So on the original Atari, we of course had the channel. You could tell that if on channel 2 or 3, the idea was that back in the old days, you had to tell your computer systems and your consoles, gaming consoles, what channel to put it on, because more than likely you didn't have channels 2 and 3 available on the air on your television. So if you had channel 3, like we had channel 3 in Cleveland, so we always used it on channel 2. There's the right and the left joystick controls, and then there's the difficulty button. And so these were cool too, because you could set the difficulty to A or B, and that would give you a harder game, a more difficult game to play. And so there's the difficulty for the right. So if you were smart, you would always set the person who had the other controller to difficult, and then you would set yours to easy. And then, you know, that would help as well. There is a button right there for power. This has the original has the RCA jack that went out to the television, and this went into a converter box, and that converter box hooked up to your TV, and that enabled the gaming system to play on your TV. Now, as far as the Lego version has all of that as well. It doesn't have, if you notice here on the original, how there's the embossed names of each particular port. The Lego version doesn't have the embossed names. It's just basically this piano finish tile and that sort of thing, but no big deal. Down here, it's the same button. Now, these buttons move, and and it's really cool the way they did these buttons. I'll let you figure that out when you build it. And there's ports. Obviously, they aren't the pin ports that are the real ports for the real thing, but they did a good job so that you could actually hook up the Lego controller to this game, and where you know, you have the Lego controller and the studs, that just fit right in. So they did a really nice job with that. And you have the power and all that sort of thing as well. It's the Lego version is shorter than the real version. It's also heavier, obviously, because it's Lego and Lego weighs a lot. It's heavier than the original version or the real version. You know, this is pretty light, to be honest with you. This is pretty heavy, but let me show you why it's so heavy. I'm sure you know about it, but I think it's a really cool feature. The best feature on the Lego version of the video computer system by Atari, or the Atari 2600, is this feature here, and that is the most satisfying feature in terms of it just works wonderfully. You pull it out, and again, I'm trying not to get fingerprints on it, so I'm going a little more gently, I guess, but it is a scene from a 70s 80s-ish bedroom. And of course, this is exactly the way it looked at my house. Now, I didn't have the Atari video system in my room because it was for everybody. So we had it on our downstairs big screen TV. We actually had a big screen at the time, yes. It was one of those rear projection deals, and it was great to play, especially Space Invaders and stuff. I didn't personally have the green shag carpet. I had orange shag carpet. Yeah, I know, orange. But we had olive green appliances at one point, and some kind of, you know, and things like that, and carpet and all that sort of thing in different rooms. So yeah, so paneling, all that sort of thing. I had tons of posters in my bedroom. I did actually have a VCR, and VCRs came into vogue with the Betamax, then VHS kind of took over. That green figure down there in this boy's room or this girl's room, whoever you want to be, I see this figure as a G.I. Joe. Now, when I was a kid, G.I. Joe was huge back in the 60s, 70s, and then started kind of fading out. But G.I. Joe was, you know, because both of my grandfathers had been in World War II, and he was a, you know, the Vietnam War had just ended, all kinds of stuff. And so GIs, general issue soldiers, you know, were to be celebrated, and they still are, obviously. So I had G.I. Joes, and back then G.I. Joes were 12-inch figures. They were 12-inch action figures that were articulated, had hands. I had the hands with the kung fu grip that could grab and grip things, so you could grab them onto a string and like let them go down, you know, down or rappel down the tree and stuff like that. And G.I. Joe was one of those toys that we played with outside. I mean, we dug forts, we made foxholes, we did all kinds of stuff. And so I see that green as being representing G.I. Joe there, and some action figures. Yes, I did have a telephone in my room. It was bright red, I believe, and I was very, very blessed and very fortunate, and I had a television. There's an old CRT TV, but again, our Atari was hooked up downstairs. Of course, had the boom box and all kinds of stuff like that. But this is a really cool little vignette that I see in here. And this minifigure that comes with the set obviously has a joystick and is wearing an Atari shirt, so I think that's awesome as well. I did have a cat. Her name was Opal when I was a kid. So this just brings back so many memories. So many memories. I mean, again, this is not, this is an apples and orange comparison, of course. The orange, speaking of orange, this is really bright, right? This, again, it has, I don't know, gosh, 40 years of wear or whatever, but it's still orange, and it's still there. And so you see that it was marked in orange in red, and then this is marked in red and yellow. And then it has really bright orange going around it and stuff. So there are a lot of similarities. They did the best they could. There's a lot of sculpting involved in this Lego model that is just really, really awesome. I just love it. A lot of sculpting takes place on the inside, a lot of studs on the side construction for the controller, a lot of cool techniques that are used. I won't go into all of them. I'll let you find them out for yourself. I will see about putting a speed build up without my voice and all that kind of stuff, and make it last for a couple minutes. But anyway, this is the real deal. This is the real deal from 1980. Played with it probably thousands and thousands of times. This is the real deal from Lego. And I wish this one worked, because that would be awesome, wouldn't it? And I'm sure maybe somebody might mod, because there's, you know, if you took out the vignette, there's actually a lot of room inside, and you could put a board in there, a motherboard, and you could, or a Raspberry Pi or something, and, you know, you could do some work on it and actually make it work. So there's an idea for somebody who wants to get busy and do that. The cord is made, and it's very flimsy in terms of it falls apart really easy, but it's from the piping that comes with Lego, and that's about it. So I hope that you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane and trip down the video computer system Atari 2600 video console from the day and from today. So with that said, oh, you know what, by the way, like this video, don't forget, and hey, stop by the Drmcbrick store. There's all kinds of merch at teespring.com, Drmcbrick General Store. With that, check me out on Instagram and all of the socials, and I will talk to you later. This is Dr. McBrick. I think I'm going to go play, let's see what I'm going to play. I'm sorry. I'm going to play Space Invaders. Still the best game around, ever. Dr. McBrick, signing out.